should know that.
Kangankundi is his name. Bit like just gave a presentation this morning. Kilimanjaro is actually Kilimanjaro, I think, if I got that correctly, correct? And this Kangankundi is actually Kangaunkundi. Kanga meaning it's mine, and Unkundi is a type of plant that exists in Malawi that they used to eat. And that's a very succulent, sweet fruit. So I want to talk today about the Kangankundi project. Lindian has, there's a disclaimer here, always got to go through the disclaimers to protect myself, I think, from making bold, audacious statements that people don't believe. The capital structure of the organisation, we have 978 million shares on issue with about 93 million options and 33 million performance rights. Our share price at the moment is around about the 25-cent mark, so it's something like a $230 million market cap. There's two projects that, or two asset classes that Lindian has. One is Kangankundi, which I nicknamed the King. People find that a lot easier to pronounce, and I believe it will be the king of the rare earth projects globally. It is strategically important. It has a very short runway to production, and I'll go through why. Destined to be a major supplier of rare earths. Lindian also has bauxite assets in Guinea. And Guinea is one of the preferred locations in the world for bauxite assets. And our billion-tonne asset class has one particular project which can be upgraded to almost a 60% alumina oxide grade with about 2% silica content, which is one of the highest grades, least deleterious projects in the world. And there's about 100 million tonnes of that project, so they are particularly good assets. I'm going to focus on Kangankundi today, and I'd encourage you to go to the website and have a look at the bauxite assets. Kangankundi, I'm going to outline the path by which I will define what I think will be the largest rare earth deposit in the world. This was an acquisition by the chairman, Mr. Kabunga, which I think was one of the deals of a lifetime. It was actually a fantastic project. The tenure, it is on a mining licence at the moment. So it's approved, it has an ESIA, it both have a mining licence, surrounded by an exploration licence, and therefore it's a fast-track timeline to production. Metallurgically, we had an insight because the French government has done some work on this project. My metallurgist and chief engineer over here, sitting at my side, has done a fantastic job in what we're doing in metallurgical moment to prove that gravity separation alone is capable for this process. We don't need any chemicals. Environmentally, it is one of the most unique deposits in the world. It is a monazite. I mean, all monazite is known as being radioactive, except for this one, which is non-radioactive. It is net zero carbon capable because we have access to a hydroelectric power line, and there's a clear path by which we can have a net zero carbon footprint. It's near-term ready asset, and it's going to have a long mine life. So let me stick you through. So first, the location. Malawi, if you don't know, is located on the western side of the Rift Valley, beside Lake Malawi, which is 650 kilometres long, 150 kilometres wide, 800 metres deep of fresh water. The project's located in the south of Malawi, just south of a town called Balaka, which has a population of 36,000 people. Extremely fortunate. The M1 is about 5 kilometres to the west. There's a high voltage power line very close by, about 6 kilometres. And the rail line, which there goes to Port Nacala or south to Port Bira, is only 9 kilometres away from the project. So it's ideally located around some infrastructure. The red box is the mining licence, and the blue box is the exploration licence. This is what the project looks like. This photo is during the dry season, and you can see it's proud. It sits about 200 metres above the surrounding plain. This is a view during the wet season, which is right now. Looking north, there's drill rigs. It's particularly uneven topography at the surface, so our challenge has been finding drill pads to actually get access to site to actually drill this thing out. And these are the type of rock types we see, which is particularly unusual within the rare earth industry. These are stunning crystals growths which host the monazite mineral. There's this carbonatite, which the geologists call a breccia. It's basically a volcanic plug, so it's been a particularly violent volcanic activity which has mixed everything up. And on the side we've got these breccia zones which has mixed carbonatite with altered host rock around the outside. So from a geological perspective, this lilac zone is the shape of that volcanic plug with other little bits of carbonatite stuck in a surrounding zone of breccia like this. This entire complex is about 800 metres long by about 750 metres wide. Regionally, there's a couple of other prospects here, one called the North Knoll, where we know there's some carbonatite, and the South Knoll, but we haven't done any exploration on them whatsoever. Our focus has been basically within this carbonatite material there, and when we can access some of the breccia to the western side of the carbonatite. These are some of the drill intercepts. Now, I don't want to sound like a radio host reading out the English Soccer League football results, so I'm not going to go through every assay. I'm just going to slip through some slides that gives you some dimension of the size and capability of grade this project has. So there's hundreds of metres of exceptionally high grade in rare earths, and we haven't touched the edge of this complex at the moment. We've got extensive mineralisation. At least it goes to 300 metres, and we haven't quite got to the edge of the boundary layer of the breccia zone at this point in time. This is what some of the mineralisation looks like. These are 4% intervals, here, here, here and here, and you can see the green coloured texture here. That is the monazite mineralisation that's quite visible. Where you don't see it, it goes down to about a lower grade zone at around about 0.8%. And this is the scorecard, so this is the English Football League results that I won't go through. Hundreds of metres of actually fantastic grade intervals. We're actually pretty encouraged. We got quite excited when we hit 1.5% because it was a different rock type. It's a breccia, it's a low grade zone. So it gave us an insight that, you know, while these carbonatite grades are absolutely fantastic, there is hope in that breccia zone that there is mineralisation that's certainly economic. So we're down to about hole number 31 at the moment. In fact, the drill program is about 98% complete, and we're about 45% through our assay reporting. So there's a lot more assays coming out very soon. This is some of the results that Mark has been able to prove. This is the flow sheet we're doing. It's a spiral, so it's water only, no chemicals, water, spirals. These are shaking tables. This little device here, which looks like R2-D2, has fallen on his side. It's called a multi-gravity separator, which Mark's described. It's like your washing machine tipped on the side, on the spin cycle, pulsing back and forth. The coarse material goes through the shaking tables, recovered, and there's a monazite stream sitting on the edge of the shaking table. That green colour is the monazite. That's the recovery out of the shaking table. And the fine material, which is less than 50 micron, which is always the problem size fraction to actually get recovery from, went through the multi-gravity separator, and we recovered monazite out of it too. And the French government did some work on this back in the 80s, and they said they could get 60% recovery. And Mark said to me, I now understand why the French government were getting 60% recovery. What they didn't have was R2-D2 sitting on the side here recovering the fine material. So this gives us hope that they're actually on the path to actually significant recovery outcomes for the project, and that's very important, obviously, economically. Metallurgy is one of the toughest things to deal with in rare earth projects. So the fact that this is gravity-only separation and that we can get good recovery, which will be announced very shortly, is extremely encouraging. And that adds to our carbon footprint, or the net zero carbon footprint, along with our hydroelectric power source, water-only recovery. So this is fantastic. So what does the concentrate grade look like? Kangankundi has around about 20.4% NdPr, which is not as high as Bayanobo or Mount Weld, but it's a good percentage. Mountain Pass in the US has a concentrate grade of around about 15% NdPr. NdPr content of 15%. Concentrate grade historically was around about 60%, and it's non-radioactive, as I mentioned before. We will find out in the next week or two whether we can actually achieve that concentrate grade. Currently doing some high-intensity magnetic separation work to understand the recovery or the purification of the concentrate to a 60% grade. That's a world-leading position. So this is our timeline for development. We have absolutely hammered this project. Shareholders gave approval for the acquisition of this project on the 29th of September. We started drilling late October. By November and December, we decided that we would try and push through the wet season in Malawi and see if we could continue to drill, and we have been able to successfully. We've had about 3 days downtime, which has been particularly fortunate. So as I said, about 95% of our drilling has been completed, about 98% now, 45% of assays, metallurgical test work out very shortly, and we're on target for what is probably in the late second quarter, a resource statement. of which I think we will make an extraordinary presence on the market. I can't tell you exactly what that number is, but we are looking in the range of hundreds of millions of tonnes, with our arithmetic average at the moment of all assays being 2.2, and the drilling program is actually finishing on some of the highest grade portions of the deposit. So I'm relatively confident there are hundreds of millions of tonnes at an average grade of at least 2.5% going to be presented to the market in the second quarter this year. I encourage you to keep an eye on it. This is a mining licence. And there are some conditions where we have to keep our mining licence compliant by getting to a mining operation. We've got enough confidence at the moment with the work we're seeing that we can go into what we're calling the stage 1 demonstration plant, notionally at around about 350,000 tonne per annum. It's about a 40 tonne per hour plant. We're basing it on the fact that we've actually found a mill in South Africa that can be rehabilitated into this operation. The point of this is that we know that we're not going to go into a perfectly optimised process. It's going to be suboptimal, and we'll work through this on a process over a number of years that will then optimise our recovery and our process flow sheet. It's essentially the feasibility study. The difference is, because it's a mining licence, we're able to sell the product and make revenue. So we've got some capital costs for that plant at the moment, which are particularly affordable, I think is one way to put it. What we now need to do is actually complete our metallurgical work and undertake offtake agreements that could see that demonstration plant come to fruition. The income from that plant, which if we get our numbers right in terms of grade and recovery, we can make somewhere between 5,000 to 8,000 tonne per annum of rare earths. So even though I'm calling it a demonstration small scale stage 1 plant, 5,000 to 8,000 tonnes of rare earths per annum is actually not bad. That revenue will pay for stage 2, which is what we're saying is the final plant design after our feasibility. And that'll be affordable out of the revenue and earnings from stage 1. Strategically positioning, what I'm advising the board is I think this is capable of a 1.5 million tonne per annum plant. And if I've got my recovery and my grade right, that positions us as a 30,000 tonne per annum rare earth producer. One of the great aspects of this project, if we've got our numbers right, which I think is going to be hundreds and hundreds of millions of tonnes of mineralisation, is that this will likely have a mine life of 50 to 100 years, or maybe even 150 years. There's that breach around the outside, which we haven't done much exploration work on whatsoever, which could extend the mine life even further. So it also has not just longevity, this project also has scale. I'm saying, well, if we get to 30,000 tonne per annum, if the market is there, why don't we expand again and go to 60,000 tonnes, or expand again and go to 90,000 tonnes? That's the positioning statement that I hope to articulate through this process, where we deliver these results into a definitive strategic plan. This is potentially one of the projects in the world that will normalise the trade of rare earths throughout the world. And the last of the slide is a positioning statement of what I think this project is capable of. I'm saying this is what I think a Tier 1 rare earth project is. Something like 500 million tonnes contained total rare earth, which means it's about 2%, for about 10 million tonne of contained rare earth. With an NdPr ratio of greater than 20%, we're capable of doing that. Concentrate recovery, I think we're probably capable of getting and achieving an 80% recovery during the duration of the stage 1 demonstration plant while we optimise it, ultimately going towards our large scale. Is it non-radioactive? It is. We don't have to do anything about that. It was just one of those gifts of nature that's been granted us. It is capable of a net zero carbon footprint, which is a fantastic statement, as James said before, about making commodities compatible with products that are carbon abatement materials. There's nothing better than having a net zero carbon footprint up front. It's a perfect combination. Our capability of 30,000 tonne per annum or greater. And I think this project is capable of that. And that's what I would call a Tier 1 project. I know it's a bit unusual. Lindian hasn't been it's sort of been sitting in the doldrums for a long period of time for various aspects. This is one of the fastest tracked projects we've had, or I've experienced or know of since the 60s. We can achieve going into production in 2024 and ramping up to what could be the greatest rare earth deposit in the world, which shall have multi-generations of capability of supplying rare earths. Thank you very much.